Now, this talk that I'm about to take you through was, I actually did this engagement before I ever joined ThoughtWorks, okay? So it's more than 2 years ago. There's a few things have changed in this particular engagement since I was there, so I'll take you through. One of the key messages, though, was we're IT operations. Agile practices don't apply to us, okay? And what I did with this team was I took their operations team through a kind of journey of change and showed them some of the tools out of the Agile toolkit that they can actually use. Okay. The company was Auto Trader, quite a famous, well-known online brand, very large operations team. Now, I came across these guys because I did a talk in Manchester, and the CTO at the time approached me after the talk. The talk was about Kanban, and he said, come and introduce Kanban to my team. Come and do all this really magical, limiting work progress stuff with us. Of course, my first question to him was, well, why? Why do you want to do it? There has to be reasons why. And what the CTO told me was, he said, well, the team currently run ITIL practices. We've had auditors who have come in and they've told us we're doing some really great features of ITIL. I've got management reports coming out my ears from all my line managers telling me that the teams are really performing well. He said, but there's something not quite right. I can't get my finger on what is quite not right about this IT operations team. Okay. So my challenge was, where do I start with this? We can't just go in there with a blank sheet of paper and stick up a load of card walls and make everything work suddenly. So what I did instead was I thought, well, why don't we use Kanban as the tool to look at their system to find out what their problems are. Yeah? This was their current system. This is a ticketing system. This is one called Infra. Doesn't really matter what it's called. They're all pretty much evil in themselves. Okay. But you imagine coming into the office every morning and seeing a big list of stuff that's to be done. Okay. So looking at that list, I thought, okay, guys, what we'll do is, let's start very simple. Let's create a card wall. Let's 3 simple columns. Not started, doing and done. Let's start from there. Take everything out of that system that's in your current work queue and put it in those 3 columns. So the guys, quite quickly, stacked all the cards. This is what I'm currently working on. There's all the stuff in the backlog. That's a really good start, guys. And straight away, got some really good conversations going with the team about the actual work. The next morning, I said, right, every morning we're going to do a daily stand-up and we're going to have a quick review of this work and we can plan our day. The next day, I said, well, to make it easier, guys, why don't you all stick your avatars on the cards that you're working on? And the board stayed like that. And I said, well, where's the avatars, guys? And they said, well, we're not working on any of that stuff. So, okay, so you're not working on any of this stuff, but we just said we've just taken all of the work out of your ticketing system. Surely that's your single source of work. And they said, well, see that group of people over in the corner there, they're project managers. They've got all this other work that's not in Infra, in this electronic system. I said, okay, well, let's stick that up on the board then. Let's see where we get to with that. Another day goes by. Guess what? Nobody's working on any of that stuff either the next day, because they've had all these other bits and bobs that have just appeared throughout the previous day that they're now working on. That's a really simplified view. The real view was literally from floor to ceiling of just cards, okay? Complete waste of cards. So actually what I realized is there's a perceived system in a lot of these IT operations teams that this ticketing system is the single source of truth. That's how everybody works. That's where they get their work from. How many times have we heard the phrase, log a call? Yeah? If you want something doing, log a call. Yeah. What I found was, there's this thing called systemic influence as well. There's all the stuff below the surface of the water that you don't see. It is things like all these other sources of work that are managed by Microsoft Excel spreadsheets, maybe. You've got the drive-by requests. Yeah? You've got the project managers in the corners, all these other things. You've also got this cool stuff, What about the stuff that the IT ops guys want to do themselves because they know it will save them a lot of time in the future? They can't get that stuff made visible because if they stick it in here, everyone can see it suddenly. And everyone's like, don't do that stuff, that's not high priority. So what did I learn through this? Well, how our priorities decided. There was no real prioritization mechanism, okay? Everything in the core tracking systems logged as P1s, P2s, etc. And people say, yeah, we prioritize everything. No, it's not true prioritization, okay? You've got this thing about what is value, okay? If you've got people coming into work every day looking at a long list of tickets, they have a complete separation from the understanding of what is the value of that work. You know, we had line managers who were running reports to look at, well, what are the really oldest tickets because they're making us look bad. We've got a ticket here, 3 years old. Come on, can someone get that closed? It's embarrassing. My question is, how can it possibly have any value if it's 3 years old? Just delete it, okay? Staff with cherry-picking work. We're all conditioned over the years that if you're not busy, if you get stuck on something, crack on and pick something else up, keep yourself busy, okay? So again, it drives these behaviours where individuals are picking up different pieces of work without them really having any value conversation. Some of them were to meet targets as well. Let's make up the figures for today, type of thing. Let's pick some really easy, low-value stuff. Lots of task switching. You imagine the amount of work they've got in progress, so let's just keep switching that around. And yeah, work is pushed, not pulled. It's a constant, there's no floodgates to stop this influx of work constantly coming in. Not just in the ticketing system, but in Excel spreadsheets, in Microsoft project plans, all these different sources of work are coming in constantly. So there is no real prioritization. Not just service desk calls, different types of work, business as usual. Yeah, you've got to keep those little 10-minute jobs ticking over. I didn't find many 10-minute jobs actually throughout when I was working in the ops team. This was about line managers doing favours. Someone approaches them, oh, any chance you can sort this, can you just build this server for me quick? I need it by, yeah, don't worry about that. I'll get the team to go the extra mile. I'll make that commitment on their behalf. And then the line manager would go and basically stitch his own team up, or her own team up, yeah? But again, these are just things where we're all trying to do the right thing, we're trying to do the best thing. But actually without a system in place, a visual card wall system, we kind of were a bit open to these influences. And the other thing was all work gets blocked. There was teams within the operations team who were blocking each other, and they sat several desks away. Okay, so there's no real understanding of the flow around the department. So after we'd taken all of that stack of cards off the wall, what did the wall look like? So this was one of the early iterations of their particular card wall, and this was in the sysadmins team. So these are guys who were basically, they were the sort of known as the main bottleneck in operations. These were the guys that were slowing everybody else down in the project teams who were doing all the sort of big site builds, all the other ops teams who needed other things doing. Give you a quick overview. We put this input column in place. This was one of the first things we did because this is the floodgate. This is the thing that you can raise and stop that influx of lots of work. People can't start dumping work into this team anymore. Okay, they have to have a conversation. So where we've got this, we've got 4 slots. Pick a slot. What do you want to go in that slot? If we've got all of this demand on this side, across these different stakeholders, then you've only got 4 slots available. Some of the other things, we found that it's not just you pick up a ticket, you do it, and it's signed off. It goes into this kind of, it needs to be signed off, it can be scheduled for release, so nothing's really done until it's really done, and it's closed and it's live, okay? So even starting to visualize some of these additional steps really help them. Over here, we've got the different streams. The top 3 are main kind of product areas on the Auto Trader website. We've got a column here which is other. There's just work randomly appearing. People drive, these drive-by requests, walk-ups, emails coming in. The question, well, why don't you just say log a call? Well, what if it's from the chief exec? You're not going to say log a call. You know what I mean? There's all these different people in different places who will influence this. We've got business as usual, which is a lot of the maintenance tasks that the IT ops guys do. A lot of that wasn't actually in the ticketing system. They just knew they had to do it on a scheduled sort of period. And then we've got some other things there. So it's this whole concept of, here's all your stakeholder work coming in, here's your floodgate, drive the discussion around capacity and value in this space here. By the way, there's only 4 slots. Obviously, we're pushing the kind of management of that backlog onto the stakeholders. We're saying, you guys keep hold of that. You manage your own backlogs. There's no point keep dumping it on us, because guess what? That's our capacity. That's all we've got. Okay? Expedite. Of course, you've got your P1 incidents. Sites go down. You're not going to say, well, sorry, guys, get it in the QA and we'll work on it whenever. You still have to work on some of these expedite items. But this is the key here. It's little number 1. You can only have 1 item in there at any one time. And I see a lot of teams who have an expedite column but then don't limit it. And guess what? Everything goes through the expedite column. Next one was blockers. So I always encourage teams to standardize on a kind of magenta post-it note to signify blockers. I don't know if anybody else does that. But actually we've got some yellow ones here, because what we found was there was other teams in the same department who were blocking themselves, okay? So you see these are blue cards. This was a networks team. So these are the guys who are actually building all the network infrastructure. They used yellow cards for theirs. So guess what? When this team was blocked by networks, they'd use a yellow card. It meant you could walk into the department. It was a room not much bigger than this, and you could, at a glance, scan around and see which teams were blocking who. It's a bit like, they tip a bit of blue dye in an iceberg at the top and see where it comes out. And it's a way of sort of tracing the system. And it meant we could get those guys from those teams at the stand-ups every day to help to unblock this work. So suddenly, we started to break down those silos within the silos and getting those guys interacting. Daily stand-ups. We've got 2 different teams here having a daily stand-up. We've got a business applications team who do a lot of the installation of antivirus software and all that kind of stuff. This is the sysadmins team here. This is the actual board. Some of the things that really changed was their whole behaviours as working as a team, as opposed to a load of individuals heads down with earphones on. Yeah. So they were problem solving every day. There's a video at the end of this, which I'm not going to show, but you can view it online, and it talks about how they felt throughout this experience. The conversation they were having that they'd never had before as a team. It brought the team together as a true team. It caused some real problems, actually, with line managers. What is the line manager's role in this new world? In the old world, the line manager was there to allocate the work out and give tasks. In this world, the team are pulling that work in themselves. So actually, the important part from a coaching perspective was actually letting the managers know that they still had a really, really valuable role to play. And that is, as you can probably guess, unblocking work, helping with that whole prioritization discussion, and taking care of the team, making sure that they're happy. Retrospectives is another one. They'd never come across retrospectives before. That whole thing of getting in a room together, keeping all the blockers, reviewing all the blockers that have been blocking them, trying to pull in other teams to help them with the retrospectives, and then talk about how do we kind of move on from here? What changes do we need to make to the system? Another surprise was pairing. We had individuals started to pair, sysadmins sitting together, solving problems. They'd never done that before because they'd never been allowed to. They were always allocated to separate jobs. Okay, so you can already start to see a lot of behaviours coming from the agile camp which are really transferable and working really, really well. Just want to talk about this board layout. I've not got a photo of the board, unfortunately. So this is one of the lessons I learned quite early on in this engagement around organisational change. So can anybody spot a bit of an anti-pattern there that we would maybe consider in the Kanban community? Go on, Mike.
You're organising people, not organising work.
Correct. So as a Kanban coach, if I'd have stood there and had an argument with a line manager around this to say, no, we don't do it like that in Kanban. No, you're breaking the rules, okay? It was a non-starter, believe me. The individual, quite a tough cookie. But the beauty of Kanban is you start with what you do now, okay? If you get this pushback when you're trying to make change, literally go with the flow. So we created this board. We allowed the line manager to do what they wanted to do and allocate the work out to individuals. It's that control piece, all right? Because my first goal is I wanted them to even get a board up, get a card wall up, yeah? So we could start that visualization and start the meaningful interactions on a day-to-day basis. Because once we did this, and we also stuck avatars on the cards as well. So suddenly you've got the name in the column, and you've got avatars, and we started to see avatars moving between these columns. And of course, the line manager would jump on it and say, well, what are you doing working in that column? And I said, well, we're helping. We're moving this work through from here to here and then down here, because we believe we can do it quicker if we work together. And you very quickly saw people moving around the columns, and they'd never done that before. It made the line manager a lot more comfortable with the fact that they don't need to allocate work. They'd found their purpose. They could help in unblocking, they could help in the prioritization piece. So the board evolved from that, and eventually they got rid of all the names, and it was pretty much like the first board you saw. Okay. So again, with people say, oh, you're not doing Kanban properly if you've not got limits, if you've not got this, if you've not got that. Start with what you do now and evolve. Yeah. As I say, there is a video, it's an interview with lots of the key people. You can also go onto this website here, itopskanban.wordpress.com. And that's actually a full write-up of the engagement, which has got details of all the boards that were created, and you can learn from that. Okay, I think we've got about 5 minutes for questions. Any questions?
Did they help you create your board?
Sorry?
Did they help you create your board?
Well, sorry, I did not create these boards, they created the boards. Yeah, so from a coaching perspective, I showed them examples of what boards may work for them. We kind of, as you saw, threw up the work on the wall, and and then iterated from there and evolved and just helped them.
Did they throw away ITIL afterwards?
Sorry?
Did they throw away ITIL afterwards?
Throw away? ITIL. No, still got ITIL. And I think that's a different discussion, that. Yeah, but as I say, it'll sit on top of whatever you do. ITIL is absolutely fine if it's applied in the right level. Dig myself a hole there.
And did you find any radical changes in throughput or lead time on tickets or those kinds of things? Did you measure that at all?
Yeah, so as far as metrics go and data, I always collect data as I go along to try to validate that kind of stuff. But in this particular case, because there's so many different sources of work in so many different formats, it was very, very difficult to baseline, get a starting point for how long work takes. I mean, I've actually got this is a pattern I see across every single ticketing system. So you've got the dotted line is what's been raised, the blue line is what's been resolved, and of course the backlog grows and grows because they never quite meet. I put in a bunch of Freedom of Information Act requests into various borough councils around the country and local authorities, and I say, give me the data from your ticketing systems. And it was scary. They had tens of thousands of tickets unresolved, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm actually, that was about a year ago I did that. I'm probably going to do the same now and see if there was a catastrophic explosion at some point and they all dropped off. But again, metrics is a really interesting part of it, and it's very difficult. But, pardon? It probably is. I'll publish it. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, everything I do, I put out there as Creative Commons. But again, in this situation with these guys, there was no. There could have been value in metrics, but actually they got so much value in simply visualizing the work and interacting in a different way. Yeah, they could maybe continue to evolve onto that. Any more questions?
Hey, sorry, probably your most common but least favourite question. We have distributed NetOps and DevOps teams, so a whiteboard doesn't really work so well. We use certain tools, but I'm just interested to know what your chosen tools are.
I didn't have a chosen tool until I saw a demo of something at lunchtime today, but I need to investigate that one a little bit more. But essentially, I think I said at the beginning that electronic tools are evil, and I think it's the way, it's the behaviours that they drive which is the bad thing. Okay, I use an electronic tool on every single engagement I'm on, but the tool doesn't rule me. Yeah, I will use a physical card wall, and that is our single source of truth. I will reflect that in the electronic tool. I have offshore teams in various locations around the world. They then reflect what they've got on a physical wall as well. So it is, people say, well, that's a massive overhead and a burden and trying to replicate it. It's actually not too bad. It's not that bad. But again, it's about the value, it's about the conversations it's driving. But it's always a difficult area. And I'm going to see Russell's bit of software, this guy here, and that looks really interesting, by the way. What's it called, Russell? Obeya. Okay, great. Thanks, guys.